The SafariZone is a well-known area in Pokemon that makes an appearance in many of the mainline games. It's usually characterized by its lack of battling, instead of opting for a direct capture system. I mean, makes sense. You're on a safari. You don't go on a safari and bring your dog to fight the zebras. Snark aside, I've generally really enjoyed the SafariZones in games. It's very different from the main game and moves random encounters from annoying to exciting. As a kid, I'd always wonder what new Pokemon I'd discover and how frustrated I'd get at the stupid Chansey not staying in the damn ball. Just please stay in there, please. It's been 3 years. Anywho, I just wanted to talk about all the SafariZones in all the games and talk about what I like, what I don't, and rank them all based on my own personal preference. In case that isn't an obvious enough hint, this is going to be extremely opinion-based. A cardinal sin on the internet, I know, but you clicked on the video. Anyway, with that disclaimer out, let's get going. So what constitutes a good SafariZone? Well, that'll depend on personal preferences, but for me it has to have several features. 1, a want to go in there. Whether that's because there's a unique item you need to progress the game or cool Pokemon, it's something you should want to go in there for. 2, interesting map design. With the step limits that the majority have, it's kinda neat to have maze-like design that may take you a couple of attempts to get to the deepest sections of the zone. It makes it interesting to navigate. 3, exclusive Pokemon. Obviously that falls under point 1, but I'm making it its own thing because of how capital I important that is. If a SafariZone only has Pokemon you can find elsewhere, why the hell would you bother? It's more difficult to catch them here than going to a nearby route. You don't exactly want to wrestle with the slightly more difficult mechanics just to catch a Pidgey. With those guidelines I will likely ignore out there, let's just look at all the games and rate them. I will be going by generation and not specific games because generally the third game is basically the same. And I will be looking at the remakes, but they'll only have a much shorter period to talk about because generally they don't change up the mechanics that much for them. Anyway, let's go. The first SafariZone, and what a surprise, it nails basically everything I like about the SafariZone. You have a need to go in there thanks to Surf and the Warden's Teeth being in there, and both of those are at the end of the zone, so you'll need to navigate the relatively interesting design of the SafariZone to reach it. Though I feel they should have not been like 3 steps away from each other, but yeah, mild complaint. But what about unique Pokemon? Yeah, it has several. And several that are technically not unique, but give you an alternative way to get the ones that are only available in kind of annoying spots. Obviously, the prime example is Chansey. It's known for being a massive pain to catch, mostly due to the fact it only appears in the SafariZone, and had a whopping 1% chance to boot. Along with its roughly 5% chance to catch, no wonder people want to fry it in a pan after all the pain you would have gone through originally to get it. Outside of them, you also have Execute, Kangaskhan, Rhyhorn, and Tauros. Ones who get an extra location are mainly Dratini, Scyther, and Pinsir. Outside of the SafariZone, the only way to get them is gambling. Yeah, sure. Exact thing every kid wants to get after gambling their life savings away. A giant bug with sword arms. Actually, think about it, that is really cool and would 100% be worth gambling for if it wasn't available elsewhere. Main benefit to catching them in the SafariZone is you don't need to either buy coins or gamble for them, and can instead save up your coins for Porygon or TMs. Bit of a tangent, but it's only now that I think about the fact that in Pokemon games you were gambling as a minor. Likely both in-game and out-of-game you were a child gambling their money away for CDs or a .exe file. That's probably why they're not in the games anymore. That and the lawsuits. Technically, Dragonair is only caught in the SafariZone, but you can get a Dratini and evolve it, so I don't quite count that. You know, it's available elsewhere by technicality. Overall, phenomenal SafariZone. You've got a lot you want from the place. Not to mention your rival catches a couple Pokemon from there. Rhyhorn and sometimes Execute, depends on if they have Venusaur or not. So it makes you feel incentivized to go in there and catch something for yourself. You can't let your rival show you up. Go grab a Tauros and teach him the meaning of Stab Hyper Beam. Overall, I feel Gen 1 has a great SafariZone. Top of the list so far, but that's to be expected, it's the first one. Girafarig, Doduo, Natu, Psyduck, Rhyhorn, Pinsir, Heracross, Fanpy, Mareep, Apom, Hoot, Spinarak, Stantler, Ledybus, Sunkern, Gligar, Snubble, Wooper, Remoraid, Pineco, Teddiursa, Houndour, Miltank, and Shuckle. All of those are exclusive to the SafariZone in the Hoenn games. I think that gives you an idea of how worthwhile it would be to go there searching for some of them. Especially since Gen 3 cut off access to the Game Boy and Game Boy Color Pokemon games. You may not remember most of them being in there actually. That's because the majority of the Gen 2 Pokemon can only be found in Emerald after you enter the Hall of Fame. But I'd be more than happy to run to the SafariZone for a Mareep, Spinarak, Wooper, and Miltank. They're really neat Pokemon, I love them. No bias for Mareep, I promise. Anyway, the design of the SafariZone isn't super interesting, but I really enjoy the different bike paths and the Pokeblock feeders. There's only one mock bike slope, but it walks away about a fourth of the map, so it makes sense to me personally. I love how it does kind of force you to go there twice. Chances are you're rolling around with the mock bike, as it's the one that lets you move faster. So seeing the acrobike paths will make you curious what's up there and influence you to come back later to figure it out. Along with the deepest section still being a bit difficult to reach in your 500 step limit. There's also the Pokeblock feeders. I'll admit, I never bothered. Pokeblock cooking was never my thing. But it's real neat. Increasing your odds to find specific kinds of Pokemon is a great feature. Wow, it's also wonderful. So are there any problems? Well, there's nothing you need from it. You don't need to grab an HM or anything. No, it's just a side area that you can explore if you want in your own time. I'll admit, while I do get that, it's kind of a shame. The need to go in the SafariZone in Red, Blue, and Yellow made it interesting. You were forced to confront this new form of Pokemon catching you were unaware existed and had to face it head on. But I also understand why they didn't. I wouldn't be too surprised if many kids got themselves completely lost in Red, Blue, and Yellow because they didn't know where the Surf HM was. So by making the SafariZone 100% optional in Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, you avoid that issue entirely. I'm unsure where my stance on that lies, if I'm being honest. I like that you were forced to be out of your comfort zone for battles. But at the same time, the area being optional makes it less confusing. I'd have to say that, for me personally, I am not a fan of not having a need to go in there, even if it makes it easier for dumb babbies to understand how to beat the game. Yes, that's right, I'm taking a stand. Overall, I prefer Gen 1, so I'm going to put it over top of it. Basically the same as in Red, Blue, and Yellow, except for some different items and different SafariZone mechanic that, as far as I know, doesn't really affect much. Same rating as before, except extra points for making shiny hunters cry. I don't know, it's kind of funny, if unfortunate. The quote-unquote Great Marsh. Tropius, Yanma, Skorupi, Carnivine, Kangaskhan, Execute, Shroomish, Gulpin, and Paris. That is all of the Pokemon unique to the Great Marsh. That is pathetic. Half of those are only available after you get the National Dex, and a couple others are RNG if they are possible to encounter at all, changing each day. You can also get an Arbok in there, but there's two issues with that. One, you can catch Ekans elsewhere. And two, in order to do that for either of them, you need to have Fire Red plugged into slot 2. Or, the GBA slot as most people know it. That kinda defeats the whole purpose of having Arbok there. You can just go to the Pal Park and transfer them up. What is the purpose of this game? Please, I do not understand! I know there's more unique Pokemon here than in Gen 1, but there were less Pokemon in Gen 1, so I give it a pass. Oh, and don't worry, I'm not done complaining about the Great Marsh. You are kinda required to enter it, at least in Diamond and Pearl. The reason why I say kinda is because the HM for Defog is in there. Defog isn't actually required to beat the game. All Fog does is make every move you do miss, and every opponent's move 100% accurate. That's a joke, obviously. Makes all moves 40% less accurate. Which is a pain, but not required to get rid of. Just helpful because missing nearly half of your Thunderbolts is a huge annoyance. But hey, it's an HM in the Great Marsh, right? At least you'll be forced to grapple with the new battle mechanics, right? Yeah, no. Not at all. It's found by talking to this Ace Trainer right here. And what's that behind you? It's the entrance. Yeah, it's like 8 steps into the place. It's basically just a paywall for an HM. Oh, but that's not even the worst of it yet. Oh, no. The whole marsh is covered in mud that slows you down and has random encounters in it. Is it a pain? Yes, absolutely. It makes you want to not bother exploring it because you go so slow. Not to mention you randomly get stuck in the mud and need to wiggle your way out, making the whole thing even slower. But hey, don't worry. They had an idea on how to make it not as bad. They put in a monorail that lets you move to whichever section you want. Okay. Let me ask something. Why? This is a horrible solution for how garbage the mud is. This just ruins the entire point of the 500 step limit, Game Freak. Why is this what you did? It's no longer a challenge to get to the deeper sections. Just remove the slow mud instead of have encounter mud. Okay, that's much better. Okay, I think I've calmed down a bit. I hate the Great Marsh. I despise it. It's pointless, it's annoying, and I want nothing to do with it. Worst SafariZone by far. This one is interesting. Lanoon, Vigoroth, Lairon, Zangoose, Spheal, Bronzor, Lotad, Spinda, Trapinch, Cacnea, Hippopotas, Carnivine, Surskit, Magnetric, Zangoose, Shinx, Seedhot, Nosepass, Riolu, Shuppet, Beldum, Bidoof, Voodoo, Duskull, Chimecho, Bagon, Pachirisu, Weasel, Seviper, Krogunk, Meditite, Volbeat, Lunatone, Dusclops, Corfish, Gibble, Illumi, Solrock, Skorupi, and Torkoal. Wow. That's a lot. There were 24 unique ones in Hoenn. There are 40 in Johto. That's absurd. That's a lot of unique Pokemon. Of course, if you went there, you might not remember them. That's where the interesting bit comes in. The Johto SafariZone lets you customize the layout. It's broken into 6 different sections that have varying themes, such as plains, swamp, meadow, etc. They have different Pokemon depending on which is there, and the player can change it. Even to the point of adding in new items that change what Pokemon are able to spawn. That's how you get the Gen 3 and Gen 4 Pokemon to spawn. However, it has some issues. Namely, that leads to the SafariZone being pretty meh, design-wise. All of these pieces need to be able to be connected together on all sides, so it limits creativity. Along with these zones being smaller, it really hinders the grandness of the safari. This place is also very out of the way to explore. It's set all the way over there. Very out of the way. And since it wasn't in the original Gen 2 games, it has no HMs or anything in it, so you have to go out of your way to get to it. Not to mention, it is kind of annoying to get the unique Pokemon. It's too complex for my brain, but essentially you need a certain amount of points in order to get specific Pokemon to appear, and your items get upgraded as you play the game. But it has to be a different day that you play on and not just internal clock based. So you get it all, then you can just slap in items until you get the Pokemon. I'll be honest, I never bothered as a kid. It was too complex for the sheep brain. It's neat though, even if I feel it can be more trouble than it's worth. They also removed the 500 step limit, but that largely isn't impactful, as it's not big enough that I feel it matters. You aren't exactly trying to travel into the deepest section when the deepest section is a casual stroll away. Overall, it's decent. I just wish it was easier to understand the item placement system to get the rare Pokemon, and was more interesting design-wise. Still leagues better than the Great Marsh though. There is no real SafariZone in X and Y, but I wanted to at least mention the Friend Safari. It's not going into the rankings, I just wanted to mention it. The Friend Safari has a ton of unique Pokemon, but the issue is that it's all dependent on your friends. Your friends will have a safari with a specific type of Pokemon and will have 4 different Pokemon in it. Unless they got Faerie, in which case sometimes they could just have 3 different forms of Flabebe. But for example, you can have Grass as your type and have Petilil, or Fire as your type and have Pansear. The issue is size. Friend Safari is the exact same no matter the typing. There's a small area with grass. Its map is even worse than the Johto one because obviously you have nothing unique. It would have been really cool if it was fire based, you know, it would be like craggy and magma like. Or if it was, you know, water-based, it would be, you know, like wetlands. But no, just grass. You also only unlock it after you beat the game, so you can't snag a Pokemon unique to it before the champion fight or anything. It's not bad, just a bit lacking. I do like that it gives a reason to friend lots of people, though. I hate this one. It's largely the same as Gen 3, but the issue is that in the remake, you get to fight with your own Pokemon here. I can give Friend Safari a pass because it's not specifically a SafariZone. This just makes a SafariZone be essentially a couple more routes. It's lame. No. Okay, no, this is not okay. Why? Why did you remove the SafariZone? The Pokemon Go style is perfect for it, but no! You chose to deliberately get rid of the area where you just throw balls and food in the game where that's all you do for wild Pokemon battles? You absolute cretin, I hate you. Instead of the Safari Zone, you can transfer in Pokemon from Pokemon Go. Great. I don't mind that being a feature at all, but I do mind it taking up the Safari Zone. You could have gone ahead and had a separate area for that, or, even just throw it inside of the Safari Zone itself. Just have like an NPC that sits off to the side and is like, hey, this machine will let you transfer in your Pokemon from Pokemon Go. Whatever, I get it. Figuring out how to do steps in the Safari Zone is too much for the devs of one of the biggest video game franchises in the world, I guess. I despise this with a passion. I know it's not a Safari Zone, I just wanted to rant about it because I despise it so. How do you make the Great Marsh even worse? Like how? Now there's literally no unique Pokemon there because of the underground upgrades? I mean, cool, it means I don't need to go in there. You just go in, talk to the Ace Trainer, and leave. I mean, I guess it's better, you don't need to deal with the mud. You got that going for you. Bottom line, just don't waste your time in this Arceus Forsaken land. And yes, it's Arceus, I don't care. I don't care about Arceus, it's Arceus, screw you. And that's all of them. Before making this video, I assumed there would be more of them. There's way less than I expected. Less than half of the games have them, and less than that have them in the form I remember most. It's a shame. I really enjoy the Safari Zone. But why did they stop them? I can assume multiple reasons. It's hard to deny that it's an annoying way to catch Pokemon, its mechanics are confusing as all hell, and Game Freak probably has enough Shiny Hunter tears to make Team Aqua's dreams a reality. While I do love them, I can't blame Game Freak for not having them in anymore. Maybe they'll bring them back eventually, but I doubt it. Even if it never comes back, I'll still have mostly fond memories of all the non-Great Marsh Safari Zones. Final rankings in order of favorite to least favorite. Kanto, Hoenn, Johto, and Sinnoh. Friend Safari isn't exactly fitting to go alongside the others, but if I had to place it, it's better than Sinnoh's. Yes, I am that bitter. What are you gonna do about it? I'm also ignoring how bad the remake for the Hoenn one is, because it's dumb and I hate it. The reason why I put the Kanto Safari Zone above Hoenn's is that I find the requirement to go into the Kanto Safari Zone makes it more interesting than Hoenn's, even if Hoenn's has more unique Pokemon and the Pokeblock feeder. And I have a personal preference for Kantos. Yeah, I'm biased. I told you there'd be opinions. Hey, thanks for making it this far. This video was a lot of fun to make, even if it did require me to go back into the Great Marsh. I'm sorry, I'm very bitter. I know most people would have kind of checked out by now if they watched this, so I just want to say genuinely, thank you for listening to us. It was good to get this out of my head. I've been thinking about doing video essays like this for a while. It's just kind of fun. Real quick before the video ends, I just want to give thanks. Specifically for other YouTuber. I really want to thank Bun. She's been amazing. She made my PNG for this. She is just a wonderful friend. She's a constant source of inspiration. If any of you here, want a very comfy streamer to watch, I highly recommend her. I also want to give a quick thanks to Bun, Naf, and Tonskin for helping me with my script. All of them read over it and just went ahead and helped me out. And I really appreciate it. I'm hopeful to do more of these in the future. I just don't expect there to be too many. Because they take a lot of time. Anyway, you know, if you did enjoy this video, it would mean a lot if you could like and subscribe, but obviously, you know, no pressure to you. And yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day or night, whatever time it happens to be when you're seeing this end card. And you know, go ahead and take care of yourself, all right? Drink water, you know, stretch your muscles, and remember that you're appreciated. Have a good one.